Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. It's really lovely to be here. And as a foster family, we have quite a few links with Broadway. My kids all came to youth club here back in the day when they were youngsters. Some of you really supported my son Ben as he went through London Bible College, as it was then, now London School of Theology. And my son Ben and daughter-in-law Liz Nesbitt got married here. So we've had quite a few links with this church for a number of years. Oh, and Mrs. McCulloch was Ben's teacher. So it's great to be here. Today, though, I'm going to be speaking about a local Chesham-based church called HealthTree Uganda, of which I'm a founder and the director. And I want to talk about how God has led us in its formation and how we've been led in the work we've been doing. We'll then look at lessons learned and how we can apply these to our daily lives. I thought I'd start off with a map of Uganda because although we're a Chesham-based charity, we aim our work at Uganda. And I've got a little pointer here so I can just show you. So that there is Kampala, which is the capital of Uganda on Lake Victoria. And down here is Kisoro, which is right in the far southwest of Uganda. And I just wanted to point out those to you. I've worked in Kampala, but I've done a lot of work in this far southwest bit, and that's where our charity is currently focusing most of our work. And you'll see that just to the south, go back. Just to the south of Kisoro, there is Rwanda, which had a civil war and a massive genocide back in the 1990s. And then up here, and going right down the side of the screen there, that is the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where they still have a civil war going on. So Kisoro has lots of refugees coming in. There's a refugee camp just outside town, and there's many people who are really damaged by the warfare that's been going on just across the border. It's just literally a few miles from the border with those two countries. So, my first time in Africa and my first time in Uganda was in 2009, and that's a place, Kisoro is a place where I've been returned a number of times, and to this place called Potter's Village Child Rescue Centre. And it was originally set up as a rescue centre for babies whose mothers have died in childbirth due to lack of antenatal care, or the babies have actually been abandoned in the fields because of the trauma of the mothers who've been involved in these civil wars that have been going on. And so the staff at Potter's Village care for the babies, bring them back to health, and look for a foster family for each baby if there are no relatives to be found. They now also have a medical centre, a physio department, and a nutrition unit. And you can see they've now also got incubators there, which they didn't have at the start when I first went there. So a few months after my first visit to Uganda, I was invited to join a team to go to Haiti for a few weeks voluntary work. It seemed that maybe I should go, so I set aside time and made the necessary preparations. However, after that, the contacts went quiet. After some weeks of silence from this organisation, my husband John spoke to me and said, "Look, you've set aside time, you've made preparations, why don't you contact Potter's Village in Uganda and see if they need you?" This was a new idea. I'd not really thought of returning to Uganda. I thought it was a one-off visit. But I started praying, "Lord, where do you want me to go? Uganda or Haiti, or perhaps nowhere. Perhaps I should just stay at home. Within a short while, as I yielded this to God, I started to see a vision of Africa with light from heaven shining upon the continent, and I could hear joyous singing, and I felt the love of heaven pouring down for the people. And I said to God, "Okay, Lord, so I understand you love Africa, but what about me? Where do you want me to go?" And then I realised, of course, are you stupid? Of course, he's showing you, he wants you to go back to Africa and to Uganda. So I emailed Potter's Village, where I'd been before, and within hours I had a reply saying, "Please come as soon as you can, we're desperate." The timing turned out to be so perfect. The very day that I arrived, 2 babies came to Potter's Village who needed extra care, and I was given the job of caring for them both while the director of Potter's Village was caring for some babies with pneumonia. Now, I'm a trained nurse, so that's part of my background. These new babies, I had to really sort of stretch myself to look after them. But anyway, there we are. I had this to do, and so I got on with it. And here is one of the babies. Yeah, so on the left, she was just a few days old, and her life was hanging on a thread. She weighed less than 5 pounds at the time, and her mum had died in childbirth, and her dad really wanted to look after her, but he had to go out and work in the fields, and because he was a farmer, and this little baby needed 2-hourly feeds. So I was given the job of looking after this baby. There were no incubators, and she couldn't keep her body warm, so we wrapped her up in blankets and little jumpers and things, and there we are, cuddling her as well, and I was feeding her day and night every 2 hours. And there she is at 10 years old. So she went back to her dad when she was about 2, I think, when she'd been weaned and everything, and she was a bit more independent. And there she is, 10 years old, having been followed up by Potter's Village staff for all that time. By the time I went home from that visit, Ruth was able to join the other babies, and she was strong enough to maintain her body temperature as well. I didn't know it at the time, but this was the start of many trips to Uganda, because on that second visit, I was invited to go to other places to give health checks to children, to teach mums about health, hygiene, and how to keep their children free from disease, and to support impoverished health projects. All this led to the setting up of a small charity in 2014 called HealthTree Uganda, with trustees who are committed to helping with decision-making and handling of funds. And actually, Ellie's mum is one of the trustees. Ellie, who's at the back there, hiding away. There is no NHS or benefits system in Uganda, and people in the communities we've visited have often an income of less than £1 a day. So as a charity, we aim to build relationships with the community leaders and provide funds for them to access medical equipment they need, or to support the health of the community in other ways. With my background as a nurse, and now as a retired nurse, sometimes taking others with me, I've visited often remote, poor, disempowered communities, offering support and especially focusing on health, because without good health, people are unable to go to work, earn a living, go to school, and generally climb out of poverty. At present, our focus is back in the area near Potter's Village, as I said, right in the southwest. So what has all this got to do with Isaiah 58, the passage we read earlier? God, speaking through the prophet Isaiah, tells us what is really on his heart and what he loves to see us doing. Is not this the kind of fasting I've chosen? To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke? To set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter? When you see the naked, to clothe him? Briefly, I just asked, what is fasting? My NIV study Bible pointed me to Leviticus chapter 16, verse 29, where the writer is talking about the Day of Atonement, traditionally a day of fasting for Jews. And the scripture simply says we should deny ourselves. Fasting involves doing something sacrificial. God, through Isaiah, is saying it's not enough to just set aside the odd hour or day to pray. He asks us to spend ourselves for the causes of the needy. I'm not saying that we'll be saved by good works. No, we're saved by faith in Jesus. However, the Apostle James said, suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go, I wish you well, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about his physical needs, what good is that? In the same way, faith by itself, if it's not accompanied by action, is dead. So helping the needy is an outworking or a fruit of our faith. So when we share our food with the hungry, provide the poor wanderer with shelter, when we see the naked and we clothe them, when we loose the chains of injustice and set the oppressed free, then, when we call to the Lord for help, he will answer and say, here am I. He even says in that passage, then your healing will quickly appear. When I read this passage recently, I realised that through the years, we as a charity have been led to support and help people in these sorts of needs: the oppressed, the hungry, wanderers without shelter, food or clothes. And amazingly, just as God has led us to these people, he's also helped us to help, sometimes beyond our wildest dreams. So to give you a flavour, I'm going to pick up some highlights of what we've been doing in the order as listed by Isaiah in this passage. To loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke. Sadly, in Uganda, if a woman gives birth to a child with disabilities, it's a source of shame for her and for her family, and very much for her personally. It's thought that there must be something wrong with the family, or it's even a curse. Therefore, people with disabilities are often hidden away, ignored, not taken outside, and left unattended, not fed very much either, while other family members go out to work. This is an injustice for the child and for the family. But in recent years, staff at Potter's Village have been working to dispel these prejudices. In the new physiotherapy department that you can see on the screen there, the physios are showing how some simple exercises and adaptations of furniture can help a child start to develop, become self-caring, walk and live more normal lives. The department brings mums together so that they meet up with other mums of disabled children and they discover that they're not the only one. And the children also start to understand that they're not the only one as well. And they start to recognise their name when their name is mentioned. And we had a lovely story last week from a mother who had been bringing her child to this group for some time. And she said, I thought my son would never crawl. And now he's not only crawling, he's walking as well and speaking. It's just so delightful to know that this physiotherapy department, although it's only been running for a year or two, it's actually really making a huge difference to people's lives and children's lives. Meanwhile, we have a clinical officer who goes, which is like a junior doctor, who goes out from Potter's Village once a week, visiting different communities, checking on children who've previously been in the medical centre with malnutrition, and looking out for other children who have health problems. He often comes across children with disabilities who are also malnourished, persuades the mother to bring them to Potter's Village, and there the mother learns more about nutrition for their child. And the child receives medical care and physiotherapy. And slowly, some of the old prejudices are being dispelled and infants are being helped. HealthTree Uganda is the sole funder of these community visits and also sends funding to the physiotherapy department. And this is ongoing work that we still continue to fund. The gentleman crouching down there, he's the clinical officer that I was saying, the junior doctor. He's out in the community checking on the nutrition of that infant sitting on the scales there. Right, moving on to the next one. To set the oppressed free and break every yoke. Some of you, it's possible you may have heard of the work of our work at Rutaka Health Centre. Staff there were delivering 17 to 20 babies a month, as well as having inpatient wards where sick patients could be nursed overnight. A bit like Chesham Cottage Hospital in the old days, if you remember Chesham Cottage Hospital. But there was frequently no light there, and also no running water. So that nurse at the tap there, she's trying the tap, but there was no water coming out of it. It's the only tap in the whole compound there. They were getting the most 2 hours of water in 24 hours. So very, very little water available. The staff were working in very difficult conditions, carrying a heavy yoke, and they tried to care for and treat the residents of some 16 villages in a remote mountainous area about 25 miles away from Potter's Village, which I was talking about before. Babies sometimes had to be delivered by the light of a mobile phone. There was no money available from the government or the local authorities to help them. And when we realised the situation, as a charity, we were able to step in and get them hooked up to electricity almost straight away, because we had the funds ready and waiting. We also sent out a team to help and plan in partnership with the community leaders, especially with regard to getting water to come more regularly into the health centre. Now, some of you may possibly watch the Great British Bake Off on television. All quiet, maybe you don't. Yeah, you do? Okay, well, some of you may remember that one of the winners of the Great British Bake Off was called Nadia Hussain, and she's now a TV baker and chef. And she wrote an article for the charity WaterAid in 2022, which I picked up. And this is what she says about water. She says, "It is a shocking fact that more than 16 million women give birth every year without this basic necessity, water. It cannot go on." She said, "I have 3 children, and my birthing experience for each of them was different, but it was my first, having Musa, that sticks in my memory the most, 72-hour labour. One thing I took for granted throughout the chaos of my marathon labour was that clean water, decent toilets and good hygiene would be available in the hospital. It was a given that I would be able to drink clean water whenever I chose, and I remember how refreshing it was to have a shower at the end. Crucially, I felt safe. The midwives and health professionals involved could wash their hands with soap and keep their implements clean throughout the process. I never had any concerns that Musa or I would come to harm due to lack of hygiene. Sadly, though, mothers in other parts of the world face a very different reality. 1 in 4 health centres globally don't have clean water on site, and almost half are without adequate hand washing facilities. Giving birth in such unhygienic circumstances means that mothers and their babies are often at risk of catching otherwise preventable infections such as sepsis, meningitis, and tetanus. The consequences are tragic. Every minute, a baby in its first month of life dies from an infection caused by lack of safe water and an unclean environment. So the picture on the right of your screen is what was known as the women's bathroom for after they'd had a baby. You notice that there's just grass growing in the bottom. There's no actual water in the women's bathroom. And if there was water in the tap, it was some 30 yards away from that actual little place. So we were all quite shocked about that, I can tell you. I actually had a midwife cry about it when she saw. So we started to campaign for better water supply and for bathrooms for Ritaka Health Centre. And despite the COVID pandemic that we had, money started to flow in for this health centre so that we were able to send them finances to get as much running water as they need, plus flushing toilets and warm showers. And there's the mum's new bathroom. And they just love it. They absolutely love it. And the midwife, one of the midwives, said to me last year, we now actually give the mums a shower before they give birth as well as after, because some of them have just come in from the fields and, you know, they're sort of muddy and everything. So they often use it twice when a woman comes in. So they're so grateful, and not only have they got that bathroom for mothers who have just given birth, but they've also got other toilets and showers for both staff and all the patients who are there. So it's just a huge turnaround for them. The staff said it has been absolutely life-changing for them. They're looking after patients in so much better conditions for themselves as well as for the patients as well. They now have access to so much water that they've got this water tank here. They're able to offer water to the local community so that they have clean water as well, which is just amazing because it's for the whole community, not just the health centre now. This is also an ongoing project as we've been financing them to offer better health services generally by providing them with new lab equipment and a machinery to give oxygen to patients. And so here we've got a midwife giving oxygen to a newborn baby. So that's a very recent development that they've received that oxygen machine. I'm going to move on to provide the poor wanderer with shelter. And the last group I want to talk to you about today are the Batwa tribe, an indigenous tribe like the Aborigines of Australia or the American Indians or the Amazonian Indians. They had been hunter-gatherers in remote mountains of Uganda and Rwanda, where they had lived for thousands of years, till in the 1990s they were turned off the land by the government in order to develop tourism and national parks in the area. They're now not even allowed to enter the land they used to live in. They were homeless and with a life expectancy of just 28 years. That means, an average life might come to an end after 28 years. They were shunned by the local town because they thought they were dirty and uneducated and various things. But the local church stepped in and gave them some land to stay on. My husband John and I, John is here today, my husband John and I met these people in 2022 and we asked them, what do you need? And they said, we have no food. Literally, we discovered that they are often having to forage for food in rubbish dumps. And literally that day, they had no food at all. They said, we have no roofs over our heads. You see, the church had built little houses for them, but actually the roofs had rotted away really badly, and there was no money for new roofs. So that was what their roofs were like. And when there is tropical rain, it is really, really, really heavy rain. And they said, when it rains at night, we have nowhere to sleep where we can stay dry. And then we get ill. And one of the chief things that they get is pneumonia. They're very, very vulnerable to pneumonia. And they also said, we have hardly any clothes. So you'll see that in a minute. We send them out clothes quite regularly now. As soon as we left the tribe, John and I went to the bank and drew out the maximum amount we were allowed to draw out for one day. We gave it to the church treasurer so that food could be bought for this tribe. And within 2 days, they had enough basic food to last them for a couple of weeks. Then the trustees of HealthTree Uganda said, yes, we will pay for new roofing and shelter from these heavy tropical storms. And there we have new roofing. And while we were at it, we provided guttering and water tanks so that they've got more fresh water coming in, because it's a rainwater harvesting tank, so they have more fresh, clean-ish water coming into the village. This is also an ongoing project. All the things I've mentioned to you are ongoing projects because we're still funding them for different things. And with these people, they're really hoping to have an a sort of outdoor kitchen, but it's so that they're not cooking under their new roofs, because they use things like plastic bottles to burn to cook their food, and the fumes just sort of give them asthma and all sorts of breathing difficulties. So we're hoping to be able to fund them to have a kitchen that's away from their houses with a roof over the top and lots of ventilation and proper fuel so that they can eat and live more healthily. Finally, I wanted to say to you, in Uganda, the gospel only arrived in 1885, and the first church was only built in southwest Uganda in 1906. You see the plaques that are up here. Your church has been going for much longer than that. And it was only on the 22nd of September 2023, so just a couple of weeks ago, that these people received their first New Testament in their own language, the language of Rufumbura. Before that, there were Gospels, obviously, in English, but a lot of them don't speak English. So it's the first time that they've got their own New Testament in Rufumbura. And so it turns out that the way our charity has been meeting the needs of these people in practical ways has been a reminder to them that they're not forgotten and that God loves them. And I just want to show you this little video, which makes me smile every time I see it. And it's a little video of the Batwa tribe, who I've just been talking about, singing and dancing, and they're singing, "The promises of God are sure, we will serve him every day." And this was after they'd received their new roofs. They were absolutely rejoicing over this. And if you hear the word Imana when they're singing, that means God. So the promises of God are sure, we will serve him every day. Oh, no. Keep going. Right. And again. Click it again. Go. Yeah, it made you all smile as well. Good. So, just to finish off, I just want you to sort of ponder for a minute. You may feel that you'd like to support HealthTree Uganda, which is absolutely great. And I can tell you that £1 in Uganda goes a lot further than in the UK. £1 can buy a bottle of water and a whole meal. And it can do so much medically, and it can save lives as well. But as I've been talking, it may be that you're thinking, or you're drawn to something else, or you're thinking about something else. So I just want you to ask yourself, is there someone I know who's in need today who I could help in Chesham? Is there someone I know who's perhaps feeling forgotten or unloved, who I can help in some way to let them know that God loves them? Is there someone I'm being led to give to sacrificially today? If you feel that you're being prompted to do something, make sure you act on it. Don't leave it hanging for too long. And then from Isaiah chapter 58, it says, "Then the Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame." Amen. Thank you.